Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's presentation. I'll begin with a welcome to country, acknowledging the Gimwe Walabarndiginji, the traditional custodians of the Cairns land on which we meet. Today we'll critique the Bush Medicine Lesson Plan 1, examine its strengths and weaknesses, and propose modifications incorporating Indigenous perspectives and forward-thinking pedagogies. In this presentation, I will first review the original lesson plan and highlight key strengths and areas that need improvement. Then I will ground my critique in established Indigenous pedagogical frameworks, such as Yungaparra's 8 Ways of Learning and the Grants Learning Framework. Finally, I will outline specific forward-thinking modifications to make the lesson plan more culturally inclusive and relevant. Bush Medicine is part of a project initiated by Yabakai Gallery in 2015. It is in response to approaches from teachers who are keen to explore Australian Indigenous art with their students. They believe that engaging in Indigenous guides is the preferred way to explore culture. Knowledgeable community members are really the only people truly qualified or authorised to teach their own culture. Having an Indigenous person in the room to give these lessons is optimal, but due to practicalities, that this most of the time isn't even the option. These lesson plans are intended to assist in those instances, so that students can still be introduced to Aboriginal concepts and art. There are 3 collections of lesson plans for primary school visual art teachers: Bush Medicine, My Family, and Thinking About Jimmy Pike. The lesson plan chosen for this presentation is Bush Medicine, the first of a collection of 11 lesson plans. Within these lessons, students reflect on and draw ideas from an artist of Yukubai artist, Rosemary Petrai. Students' activities explore the shapes, colours, and appearances of leaves from local native trees, as well as colour mixing and mark making through painting and collage. This lesson is for Year 3 students and suits the Old Australian Curriculum Version 8 content descriptor. Use materials, techniques, and processes to explore visual conventions when making artworks. Lesson 1 is observational drawings of leaf species. The original lesson plans focusing on developing students' observational drawing skills through activities using local native leaves. This includes exercises such as blind contour drawings that emphasize careful observation. Materials are simple and locally sourced, therefore tapping into the natural environment. The teacher notes stress techniques and process, but as we will discuss, they do not deeply engage with the cultural significant context of these natural elements. One of the clear strengths of this lesson plan is its grounding in the natural environment. Using native leaves not only offers authenticity, but also creates an opportunity for students to connect with local flora. The progression from blind contour drawing to a more detailed observational drawing promotes skill development and builds confidence. This hands-on approach aligns with experimental learning, giving students multiple ways to express their creativity. Despite its strengths, the lesson plan falls short in a few areas. It misses an opportunity to integrate Indigenous perspectives by not explicitly addressing the cultural significance of the native materials used in the drawing exercises. Traditional Aboriginal knowledge about bush medicine and the spiritual role of these natural elements is explicit at best. Furthermore, the assessment methods do not reflect culturally responsive practices that value Indigenous forms of knowledge or narrative. To reimagine the lesson plans in a culturally inclusive way, we turn to frameworks such as Yungaparra's 8 Ways of Learning, which encourages holistic and rational learning. The Grants Learning Framework also advocates for inclusive, student-centered approaches responsive to diverse cultural backgrounds. These frameworks stress the importance of traditional traditions, storytelling, and the incorporation of community knowledge, which are key to enhancing Indigenous pedagogies. Here, I propose a few modifications. First, begin the lesson with a yarning circle, a traditional conversational practice. Structured group sharing and respectful listening. Yarning circles can enhance students' understanding of First Nations knowledge and a way of working, enrich the learning experience for both students and teachers, provide a safe place to be heard and respond to students, and build a connectedness within the school community and classroom. In the yarning circle for this lesson, introduce the cultural context behind the native leaves and bush medicine. Second, while students conduct their drawing activities, incorporate storytelling that explains the spiritual and cultural meanings of the plants and leaves. Lastly, tangible cultural objects should facilitate discussions, ensuring that participation is respectful and follow traditional protocols. Since the original lesson plan suits version 8 of the Australian curriculum, we would change it to suit the new version 9. And the content descriptor that matches is use visual conventions, visual art processes and materials to create artworks that communicate ideas, perspectives, and/or meanings. Enhancing teacher strategies involves creating a learning environment where every voice is valued. The modified lesson plan will incorporate a yarning circle at the start, ensuring that every student can share their ideas in a respectful and structured way. By combining collaborative inquiry with cultural storytelling, the lesson becomes an opportunity for art and the sharing of Indigenous knowledge. In terms of assessment, reflective journals and group feedback assess artistic progress and allow students to articulate their understanding of Indigenous perspectives. Assessment in the revised lesson plan goes beyond traditional grading methods. By using observational journals, students document their learning of drawing techniques and their understanding of Indigenous knowledge. Group discussions during yarning circles allow peer-to-peer feedback, while self-reflection activities help students evaluate how the lesson has influenced their cultural awareness. Rubrics incorporating culturally responsive criteria ensure that assessment is fair and reflects diverse learning outcomes. In conclusion, we can see the benefit of a more comprehensive, culturally responsive approach by critically evaluating the original lesson plan. Incorporating more Indigenous knowledge systems through strategies such as yarning circles, storytelling, and reflective assessments creates a more holistic and inclusive educational experience. Thank you for your attention. Please refer to the references for further readings on the frameworks that inform these modifications.